Hey folks, David Stewart here. The band most overrated by its own fans out of these two choices. Very non-scientific poll, but lots of great comments here. It's the Beatles. The Beatles, by a very wide margin, are the most insufferable fans when it comes to viewing the Beatles way beyond the scope of how they ought to be viewed, whereas Metallica only... Not even a quarter of people thought Metallica was overrated by its own fans. Now, I think they're both overrated by their own fans, and I'll explain a little bit about what I think about that. Most Metallica fans, you can at least get them to admit that they've come out with bad or mediocre albums. Most Metallica fans, even if they're big Metallica fans and they like what the band's doing right now, they'll be like, Saint Anger sucks. They'll admit that Lulu sucks. They'll admit that Saint Anger sucks. I think where the wheat and the chaff separate really is whether they view Death Magnetic as bad. I said Death Magnetic is a bad record, truly bad, and it is. And it upsets a lot of people because they're like, well, if the production was better, I'm like, no, the production's bad, but it's not the production. The songs are just not good. They're really bad songs. They're annoying and they're boring. So when they're not boring, they're annoying, which is bad. Pick 100 metal records at random, 100 heavy metal records at random. Death Magnetic will be worse than 99 of them. So it's in like the bottom 2% of metal records. That's a bad album to me. There's going to be like one album that's somehow worse than Death Magnetic. Now I say that they're Metallica fans. They like Metallica a lot. Death Magnetic was better than Saint Anger. That 100th album would be like Saint Anger. But yeah, so it's better than Saint Anger. Must be good. No, not really. But they'll at least admit that Saint Anger sucks. Good luck getting any Beatles fan to admit that they've ever released a bad album. Good luck getting them to admit they've ever released a bad song. So when I say that the Beatles bat about 500, meaning about half their songs are good, the other half are mediocre to bad or just boring, they'll throw a fit and they'll accuse you of many different crimes, possibly even racism, for not liking the Beatles enough. I didn't even say they're bad. I just said like half their songs are good and the other half I don't like. It's so bad. Like the White Album, if it was a single album, they cut half the crap out, it'd be a good album. It's like, but you're gonna have Beatles fans that you're like, I don't like this song. They'd be like, let me explain to you why Happy Birthday is like one of the greatest songs ever recorded. And they'll go through all their calculations to try to tell you why this terrible, annoying song happens to be better than anything you've ever heard. Or they'll be like, you don't know anything about music. If you knew anything about music, you'd love the Beatles. It's like, yeah, what do I know about music? I know nothing of music. I've never heard music before. I've never played it. I've certainly never been paid to perform it. So I know nothing of music. My complaint about Metallica fans is that they don't listen to enough metal. Like I'd say 80 to 90% of all the heavy metal that they listen to is by Metallica, which is why they don't see that Death Magnetic is not really very good. But for Beatles fans, it's like they listen to other things, but it's like it's in one ear and out the other. If it's not done by the Beatles, it can't ever be of the same high quality of the Beatles. So yeah, I actually do agree with the overall sentiment. The Beatles are far more overrated by the fans of the band than Metallica fans are. Somebody said, Metallica fans are too busy learning to cover every single Metallica song, and that's kind of true. That's always something. I mean, I learned to like all the Metallica songs when I was in high school. I loved Metallica. But as your tastes develop, as you start to listen to more metal, general opinions about the band start to decrease. Now, Metallica is still a great live act in general. They've had some bad live shows that I've seen, unfortunately, on YouTube. But, they've been a great live act. They really care about their fans. They still tour a lot. There's a lot of great things you can say about Metallica. The Beatles, I think, are partially remembered fondly because they broke up. So they never had a period where, like, they released albums that were kind of mediocre and the fan base didn't love, like Load Reload or Saint Anger. They never got to that point. They were around, it'd be like if Metallica ended in, like, 1993... That's like the Beatles, right? So the Beatles were around not even like 10 years. Or Metallica released the Black Album and then quit. That's the career of the Beatles. So it's easy to look at the career of the Beatles where it's like this small, short stretch of years where they never released the crap. I think all the crap probably came off their solo albums. So if you imagine all their solo albums are actually Beatles albums, you'd probably have like a more realistic view of the Beatles. We're like, oh yeah, here's those Wings albums that Paul McCartney put out that nobody really cared about, and here's these John Lennon songs that half the people think are stupid. You get a little bit more realistic view of the Beatles. It's kind of like Nirvana. Like there's this, I didn't put Nirvana on the poll, but another one would be Nirvana. It's like people who love Nirvana, they love Nirvana for reasons that are unexplainable, and they can't comprehend that you would think that for instance, that Kurt Cobain is not a good singer. When I don't think I shouldn't have to dig or write essays about why he's not a good singer. You should be able to hear him sing and be like, yeah, he's really not a good singer. Same thing with Bob Dylan. Let me write an essay on why Bob Dylan's a bad singer. Can't you just listen to him and know that? Right? But apparently that doesn't work when it comes to Nirvana. And generally speaking, I think the Beatles fans and the Nirvana fans have one thing in common, which is they listened to them when they were teenagers, for the most part. So it's like baby boomers listened to the Beatles and loved them. It's that impressionable youth period. They were 16 in 1969 or whatever, and so the Beatles are the greatest band that there ever was. Whereas Metallica fans tend to be a lot more spread out. I started listening to Metallica in the 90s during like the Load Reload era, and those weren't my favorite. The 80s stuff I liked better, but I still liked it. I still thought it was okay. But honestly, Metallica albums post Black Album or Black Album and then on have the same problem the Beatles have. Is they're batting 500. Half the songs are really good and half the songs are just not good. So you have that, and then really I think that carries forward all the way to the newer Metallica albums. If you cut the album in half, you'd probably have a good album. That's just kind of how it is. But because people started listening to Metallica at such different times, they don't have quite this it's the best music ever because I heard it when I was 14 or something like that. But that is almost always the case with Nirvana. They listened to Nirvana when they were like in middle school, and that's why they love it. It's simply because you could have put anything in their ears in middle school and they think it's the greatest thing ever. They think Metallica was the greatest thing ever because they heard it when they were 13. When I was 13, I thought Metallica was the greatest thing ever because I was 13. That's how the way that these things tend to work. So anyway, thanks so much, guys. Leave me your opinion down below. What is the most overrated band by its fans? Beatles or Metallica, or is it some other band? Someone was saying Rush. I'm like, I think you might have like amusia, which is an inability to hear pitches, but anyway, let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys next time. Maybe it's Kanye West. Maybe Kanye West fans overrate him too much. I don't know. You tell me.